in.
Yep, I see it. So,
All right. That's an awfully congested title slide there.
yeah, my Anna slide has some aura shields, and I saw cars on the Coalfields Expressway.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
And I encourage all businesses that are allowed to open to do so only if they can follow the guidelines to keep West Virginia safe.
And that introduction from West Virginia's governor means that it must be time for another West Virginia episode of Season 2 here on Roadway Wiz. Good evening, everyone. We're back in West Virginia this week. We've got another webinar show for you tonight. This one is going to focus more on a general overview of the state highway system, and we'll take you through some areas of the state that we haven't covered yet, and we'll tell you about the interstate system as a whole in the state, and also some current and future projects that are underway to expand the state's highway system and possibly even someday its interstate system. I'd like to make sure this is muted. I gotta do that because this is gonna be a pain in the butt. Okay. Josh is here from the Albany area. What's going on, man?
Yo, not much. How are you?
I'm okay. You know, up until about an hour ago, I thought it was just gonna be you and me on the call.
Yeah, same, but
I mean, we could have spent some quality time together talking about how much you love I-73, but we're going to have a couple other people joining us shortly in a few minutes. They're currently getting their audio stuff set up, but they'll be along in a few minutes, probably by the time we get through all the introductory stuff tonight. So it's good to have everybody with us. If you're in the live chat, welcome in. And I guess we can get started with some announcements while people are still making their way in.
Yeah, let's get going.
We have a little bit of a change of scenery now on YouTube. This past week, the bulk of everything I wanted to upload in the state of Vermont was completed. So now we have full YouTube coverage of the interstate system in Vermont. Also, the rest of the expressway / freeway mileage in the state, if you include the highway mileage around, say, Bennington and Rutland and Burlington. So you can check out everything that Vermont has to offer from a freeway standpoint. Obviously, there's a lot more to the state than just that, but this will give you a good overview of the state as a whole from the limited access highway perspective. You see where we are here in the lower left with the schedule. It's February 20th. There's a good chance that it is warmer here in New York State than it is right now in Texas. But we have 5 weeks left in the season. In fact, the season finale is 1 month from today. It's going to feature a full-scale road meet style presentation on the state of Delaware. And we have had a lot of people join us, not just in the past couple months, but also if you want to go all the way back to March, when we started doing all the live presentations. And we'll have to see exactly how we do this. There's a lot of working out to do as far as how we want to format all of this. but we are going to make an effort to bring in everybody who was a part of these presentations going all the way back to March. So if you heard this person on the program at some point in the past year, they are automatically going to be invited to take part in the season finale event, whether it is that they want to show up for 5 minutes at a time, or if they want to join us for the full show. I would imagine it's going to be a very long episode, but there will be an open invitation to people who have, taken part in helping make this so successful the past year. So if you like all the episodes that we've done, if you like all the personalities, hopefully we can kind of get a little bit of a reunion going here, and we can turn the season finale into something really special. So that's what's on my radar as far as that's concerned. That's what I'm going to be doing behind the scenes, seeing if I can convince as many people as possible to be a part of that. I think that's fair, right, Josh?
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea.
It might be a little ambitious, but I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, who cares if it's ambitious?
Yeah, who cares if there are 20 people talking over each other? No one cares about that. I want to reset the most recent major sporting event of the past week. The gentleman driving the Love's car. We all love Love's truck stops if you drive around the country, but the guy driving the Love's car, Michael McDowell, won the Daytona 500 last week. It was his first victory in the Cup Series. He is the first driver since 2011 to accomplish that feat, where a driver's first ever win in the highest series of NASCAR is NASCAR's biggest race. It's his first win in Cup. He's been in the series for about 15 years. I think he had made about 350 starts, and he picked a heck of a time to win his first race, period. But have that first race be the biggest race on the calendar. That's pretty special. So congratulations to Michael McDowell for a heck of a drive and being in the right place at the right time, that's for sure. I won't recap it for all you NASCAR fans out there. I'm sure you guys all know what happened, but I think you would agree that he was very much in the right place at the right time. You only have to lead the last lap. Mm-hmm. That's the only one that matters. So that's exactly what he did. Stop me if you've heard this in the last few days, but it's been cold in Texas recently.
Yeah, it's been colder in Texas than it's been out here.
Yeah, I think the low temperature in Dallas either last night or the night before was like 10.
Yeah, that's a bit colder than here, definitely.
Yeah, a little bit, right? The historic snowfall and deep freeze that has hit the state of Texas, even as far south as Houston, which is pictured here, it's really a sight to see what's happened down there. All of Houston's highways have since reopened, but they were all shut down for days at a time. There was measured snow on the beach in Galveston. That's the first time that's happened in a long time. And we are really witnessing a statewide disaster in terms of plumbing. I think you're going to see a lot of that continue to manifest itself in the coming weeks. So this is going to be something worth watching on a micro level, in terms of households and businesses, not just on a macro scale when we think of highways and statewide infrastructure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This will be very interesting for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, when we think of natural disasters, we think of them as being localized. A hurricane comes ashore and it wrecks maybe 100 miles of coastline. But this is,
this is a pretty large area.
It's the whole state of Texas, right? How big is Texas?
Yeah.
So,
pretty much. So
Yeah, it's going to take a long time to see some return to normal, I would think.
yes.
Because where do you start, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you have power plants shut down, water treatment plants shut down, pipes frozen. It's just a giant mess, and there isn't an easy way to fix it. So,
yeah, and we don't carry extra pipes in stock, right? So,
yeah, it wouldn't be a huge issue if it was just one pipe or one power plant, but it's major parts of the entire water system, power distribution system. It's all just falling apart. So we're talking probably weeks, if not months in some places.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And also the refining capacity at oil facilities has been shut down. So they're
yes. So if anybody hasn't been paying attention, the price at the pump has gone up quite a bit in the past few days. It'll probably keep going up because all of our refining capacity along the Gulf Coast is shut down right now. So
yeah, I think I heard somewhere on the news that there was about like 20% of our national capacity for oil refining is currently shut down.
That sounds about right.
So that's you're gonna see that ripple into the gas prices at the pump.
Yes.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it yet, you will very soon.
Yeah, I've already seen it go up about 25 cents per gallon on average in my area, and I expect that trend to continue at least for the near future.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some places start seeing close to $3 again. So.
Yeah. Although hopefully, this is more of a short-term thing that can be fixed. But you do have to wonder about, Josh, you and I are in the engineering background, and
but
there seems to be a general lack of redundancy in a lot of our infrastructure systems, especially in that part of the country.
Yes.
As far as not being prepared for certain things.
It's a nationwide problem, but Texas in particular has been having issues for quite some time with being prepared for disasters, as we saw during Hurricane Harvey. We saw during the 2011 ice storms, and we're seeing again right now. So
yeah,
it's.
I just hope that enough people are paying attention to where we can kind of start to make some progress on grid resiliency and also infrastructure resiliency in general.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
That's something we've been putting off for a long time, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. If you want, I could just spend a webinar talking about that, but we are here to talk about West Virginia tonight. So why don't we look at some old planning maps, shall we?
Wild and wonderful West Virginia, where every county is a certified business location.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there aren't any businesses in West Virginia.
Shh.
Yeah, well. Anyway.
There is the NASA Rocket Center.
Hey, Laura.
Hey.
We were waiting for you to show up before we introduced you to the panel, to the live chat, but
I'm here now and reporting live from Frostburg, Maryland.
Okay.
I Actually got mega close to West Virginia today. I did not cross into West Virginia today. I will tomorrow. But I could see it and wave to it.
So yeah, so you were in Cumberland, right?
I was,
Yeah, so
yes.
that's how you were able to wave to it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Very nice.
You saying hi, Rainey?
Yeah.
Our junior panelist has just checked in.
we have three folks in that crowd from joining us remotely from far western Maryland. Laura, Mike from MD Roads, and also their beautiful daughter Lorraine, who everybody knows in the hobby as Rainey.
That's right.
So,
And Mike is currently still bringing some of our stuff into the hotel room. We kind of got here just in the nick of time.
is he still parking?
No, no, he's parked.
Oh, okay. That would have been a cool live stream to do.
Right.
So, Laura, I don't know if you can see the PowerPoint or not, but we're going through some old maps of West Virginia right now.
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. So what I've highlighted in yellow here is the path that was ultimately chosen for I-79. You can see how there are bits and pieces of it taking shape on this map. Some of it is a dotted line. Other parts of it are just proposed at this point. 79, of course, being one of the major highways in the state that we'll talk about in the next few slides. We also see on the far left of the screen, 77 is largely in place from Charleston to Parkersburg. And also the little map in the upper left here shows the Wheeling area in I-70. There's no 470 yet on this map, so that tells me that this map is probably from the mid-60s or so, if I had to take a guess on that.
Yeah.
Southern part of the state kind of looks like this. I like how the West Virginia Turnpike is labeled here. At this point, you see it's I-77. There's also a note here that says 2-lane, because of course the Turnpike was originally built as a 2-lane road before it was expanded in the 70s and 80s. So the Turnpike is here. I-64 is largely a dotted line and a proposed route west of Lewisburg. We will get into more about the alignment of 64 momentarily here, but there were a couple of different options as far as that was concerned. It looks like they were finally leaning towards the Sandstone to Beckley alignment at this point. So that's what's listed here on this map. So if you want a general look at the state of West Virginia, this is a good way to take it in. I do want to let me change the. So we were talking about alignments, right? So one of the things that planners had in mind with 64 across West Virginia was to have it follow US 60 more across like this and tie into Charleston over this way. They ultimately settled on the path over to Beckley. I suspect they would have met a lot less resistance going to Beckley first. Due to terrain issues along 60, that seems like a pretty rough stretch to try to build a highway through.
Yeah, that section of US 60 is not only pretty rough terrain, it's a pretty environmentally sensitive area, so that may have caused some issues with that as well, so...
Yeah, the other interesting thing to consider here is that one of the original alignments of 79 followed more or less the path of US 19 today. There's a lot of political back and forth about you know, which city would be served by the south end of 79, whether it was going to be Beckley or whether it was going to be Charleston. West Virginia politics in general is a very complex and rather crappy topic to want to talk about because, I mean, it's West Virginia politics. It's not exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap to go around there. But it's interesting to consider, you know, how things might have been different if, say, 79 had come down to Beckley instead, had 64 gone across on 60 over towards Charleston, how that would have impacted the cities of Charleston and the city of Beckley as well, because Beckley is a major crossroads point in the state, thanks to Corridor L. And then you have Charleston being a major crossroads for the interstate system in general. There's also Corridor G right here coming in from the southwest. So that's one of those interesting what-ifs that I find intriguing enough to give a little bit of thought to every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think that the current alignments end up probably benefiting Charleston and Beckley more because you have the major interchanges of multiple interstates at both, whereas the original plans wouldn't have had that.
I want to talk for a second about the Appalachian Development Highway System, ADHS. As you see in the drawing on the left, the ADHS system has found a secure home in the state of West Virginia. You can see the corridors that pass through the state on this map here. Most of the mileage for the ADHS system in West Virginia is complete outside of Corridor H. And if you take a more macro view of the system, we have corridors recognized all the way from Mississippi and Alabama right on up through even the southern tier of New York State. The vast majority of the ADHS system is complete at this point. The areas in red that you see are corridors that remain to be constructed or are not yet open. Obviously, if you look at the West Virginia part of the map, there are major missing gaps in H, for instance. There are also gaps in corridors such as Q and B as well. But the vast majority of the original vision for the ADHS system has been constructed, at least in this part of the country.
Yeah, there isn't really much that's all left outside of Corridor H. I mean, everything else is generally a decent quality road already. So.
Well, guys, I had this great idea earlier today. I said, why don't we do a honorable mentions slide, and we'll talk about some of the state highways that are not going to be in the bulk of this presentation, but are worth mentioning at least for a couple of minutes. Well, it turns out that I've listed out pretty much half of the state highway system on this map, so why don't we run through some of these? At least my observations here, I see US 30, which is worth mentioning because you spend a grand total of less than 5 minutes in the state of West Virginia if you're following 30 between Ohio and Pennsylvania. It is notable for the Jennings-Randolph Bridge on the Ohio River. Same thing with US 22. You're not in West Virginia for very long there either.
Yeah, but that's maybe 5-10 minutes across, state all freeway. So
yeah, US 340 takes you through Harper's Ferry. Highway 9 has an interesting freeway segment in far eastern
Yes.
West Virginia.
Yeah, so 340 and 9 are probably the ones that we're the most familiar with. Because they also serve as a good, like, go-between between Maryland, going from, like, Frederick, Maryland to, like, Shenandoah part of Virginia. And do you have anything else you want to add, Mike, about 9 or?
But 9 was always my family's preferred go between to get from around Baltimore to Roanoke. It was the 340 through there rather than go up through Hagerstown in 81. We would cut through 340 to Virginia 277 and join 81 at Stevens City, Virginia, and then go from there south, which is about exit 300 and 150 miles down to Roanoke. But that was always a preferred cutoff growing up, so I knew that pretty well.
And that
actually have to go through town at that point.
Right, now you have an expressway that goes through. So with some limited access as well as some at-grade interchanges. I love US 340 because I just love Harper's Ferry. If any of our viewers end up out that way, it's just a great historic park. The town itself it's just very charming. Highly recommend. A lot of great Civil War history there.
Yeah, that town is like pretty much stuck in the 1850s.
It is. Well, it's interesting because most of the town is part of the national park, so it's very surreal in that the best way to access the town, because the only parking that's down there is really for the train station. Otherwise, you pretty much have to park at the park and take a shuttle over. It's really the best way to access it. And yeah, a lot of the buildings are like part of the museum experience, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then of course the Appalachian Trail goes through there. The only like 4 miles or so that go through West Virginia.
Oh, okay. I bring up Highway 20 because that's the longest state highway in West Virginia. Route 2 is a nice drive along the east bank of the Ohio River. 16 I mention here because it is being functionally replaced by the Coalfields Expressway between Welch, Mullins, and Beckley. US 60 is the Midland Trail. That's a pretty historic corridor across southern and central West Virginia. 250 has a freeway section between Moundsville and Wheeling. That's pretty neat. I enjoy that. Let's see, what else we got here?
50 is ADHS corridor D. That's device 79.
50. Oh, go on.
Yeah, it's not a particularly interesting ADHS corridor, but it is the main east-west road across that part of Virginia.
Yeah, we're obviously most familiar with the part of 50 that's in between Western Maryland, the part that goes through West Virginia between the two Maryland sections. Goes through Romney, right?
Yeah.
West Virginia. Also, the short part that does poke back into Maryland is the highest point on the Maryland system.
Right, and there's a monument there as it crosses the ridge of Backbone Mountain. Although it's not the highest point, not the highest point of Backbone Mountain, which is the highest point of the state. It's the highest point was on the system. So that's marked right there. So it's like just east of just east of US 219.
Speaking of US 219, I know that's
Yep.
I know that's somebody's favorite
Yes.
drive.
Oh
Virginia.
yes, it's
Yeah.
219 and my 92 are the main nine. Are the main nine north-south roads through the Allegheny Mountains? Excellent scenic drives. I've had a slow in places, but probably two of the most scenic long distance drives in state. Yeah, and I'm a
Yeah. So and then US 460, of course, is corridor Q.
Can I add a little?
Which
Yeah.
Can I add a little more about 219?
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so another fun fact about the absolute northernmost part of US 219 in West Virginia is the trail to go up to Hoycrest, which is the highest point in Maryland.
Yes, it is. And also, just off of 219 at the Maryland border is the smallest church in the United States.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I would not have guessed that.
It seats a whopping 6 people. 6 people.
Is that including
Very
social
cool.
distancing or no?
With social distancing, it could maybe fit 2 people.
Oh, okay.
Just enough for the minister and one other person.
Hey, as long as there's a spot for the minister, everybody else can stand outside.
Exactly. Another thing that's close to US 219 are the headwaters of the Potomac River.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes
And-
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously we covered in the Corridor H webinar about the parts of 219 that that Corridor H that US 48 that the new construction is going on to replace.
Yeah, it's a pretty sizable part of 219 that overlaps with 48 for the time being. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably 40 miles or so
Yeah.
it'll all be changing.
Yeah. I mean, that part does seem to drag on forever when you drive it, especially if you get stuck behind somebody going 20 miles an hour, which seems to happen quite a bit in West Virginia in general.
Yes, it does.
Okay, let's see if we can run through some of these relatively quickly here. I-70, as far as major highways are concerned, that did not make the honorable mentions list and are fully covered here. Another highway that has a brief stop in West Virginia between Pennsylvania and Ohio. We mentioned US 30 and US 22. Well, this is another one. 70 spends a little bit more time in West Virginia, more like 15 miles. It's most known for its freeway section through Wheeling, which features a tunnel underneath Wheeling Hill and also the adjacent Fort Henry Bridge over the Ohio River. A lot of this freeway was built in the 50s, and it sure looks it.
Yeah, it's an extremely substandard 1950s freeway, and I-70 through traffic is shoved into a single lane for part of it. So
Yeah,
it's it's an interesting drive at least.
it is. I like it. It's one of my favorite drives in the state. In spite of it being very substandard and quite ancient as far as its design, but I like to.
It serves its purpose.
I like to live life dangerously every
Yeah,
once in a
hey.
while. We also have I-470, which serves as the bypass for traffic around Wheeling. In fact, a lot of commercial traffic is instructed to use the bypass around Wheeling instead of following 70, largely because of the issues that we mentioned before about the tunnel and the substandard design of the interchanges in the city with the single lane of through traffic. There is no tunnel on 470. Instead, they elected to go over the hill instead of through it. So you have a couple of significant climbing grades, one on each side of the hill. The one on the western side leads directly into the Ohio River Bridge, which you can see in this picture in the lower right. This is a very nice view here. It is also the only auxiliary interstate in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. It's also an easy one to forget about because it doesn't spend a lot of time within the state. It's only here for about 3 or 4 miles, but it is there. It's the only one, at least at this point.
Yep, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, so...
Yeah, I don't think they're building I-864 around Charleston anytime soon. Here's a couple of views of the, this is the Ohio River Bridge here, and this is the eastbound view coming off the bridge, entering West Virginia. 81, this is one that also goes under the radar because it also doesn't spend a lot of time in the state. This is only about 25 miles worth of interstate. It makes a brief stop here in West Virginia. It actually spends even less time in Maryland than it does in West Virginia. But the 81 corridor stretches from the Canadian border all the way down to eastern Tennessee, and it spends about 25 miles of that journey here in West Virginia, around the Martinsburg area. This is a part of West Virginia that is somewhat semi-influenced by the exurban Washington, D.C., Baltimore metro area. So economically speaking, this is a different part of the state than the rest of it, I would say. You do kind of get the feeling that you're in, economically you're in, Northern Virginia or Southern Maryland to some extent. When you're passing through this area on 81.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And in fact, there's even a commuter train that goes from DC up to Martinsburg. So it's definitely an exurb, a very far exurb of the DC area.
Is that the same train that goes through Harper's Ferry?
It is. It's the Brunswick line of the MARC.
Gotcha.
Train. Yep.
Now there is a surcharge for the stops that are in West Virginia. There's a few dollars more on the ticket prices coming from the West Virginia stops, being not, I guess, try to recoup their funding because they don't necessarily pay it directly, directly into the MARC agency. Since that's a Maryland state agency.
Yep, got to recoup them tax dollars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We all have heard about states fighting over tax dollars with all the working from home craze. And what constitutes a workplace. So I expect states to want to try to get their chunk any way that they can, even when it applies to getting on the train in one state and getting off in another. That's there are a lot of interesting little debates that can be had about that. We talked about West Virginia's Turnpike. We did a virtual tour episode on it, in fact. If you have not seen it, I definitely recommend that you check it out. It's one of my favorite episodes that we've done to this point. You can hear Adam Prince's stories about Tamarack, for instance, and also some further discussion on the history of the highway, including the Memorial Tunnel and the upgrades of the highway in the 1980s. But I will, in brief summary here, say that Turnpike was built in the early 50s as a two-lane highway between Princeton and Charleston. It was gradually, well, first it was added to the interstate system. It became a part of I-77, and then in the 70s and 80s it was expanded into the four-lane highway that we have today. It culminated in the bypass of the Memorial Tunnel and the twinning of the Chuck Yeager Bridge in Charleston in 1988. And so that was the last project. And so the Turnpike now takes on that four-lane form that we see today. We talked about 64 through Charleston a lot in our previous webinar episode. On a more macro scale, this is a highway that crosses the state, the central and southern part of the state, east to west, between cities such as Huntington, Charleston, and then on towards western Virginia by way of White Sulphur Springs. This section of freeway west of, say, Sam Black Church on 64 between there and Beckley, that was the last piece of 64 to be completed in 1988, I believe. It featured a heck of a mountain pass around Sandstone Mountain, and also the Glade Creek Bridge east of Beckley, which is one of the highest bridges in the United States at about 700 feet tall. That was the last piece of West Virginia's interstate system to be constructed. It opened to traffic in 1988. Talking of this section east of Beckley, you have a lot of scenes like this, for instance. The upper left corner, that picture is of the Sandstone Mountain grade. You can see on the sign it is posted as 7%. It wouldn't surprise me if there are bits of it that are a bit steeper than that. And then as you get out towards White Sulphur Springs, there's also, you have a lot of scenes like this in the lower right. These are very pretty scenes. I think that
it's an absolutely gorgeous highway.
Yeah,
I've been on that section a few times.
Yeah, I think that the section of 64 east of Beckley into Lexington, Virginia, that's one of the more scenic stretches of interstate in the east.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very impressed with it. I was not expecting it to be as scenic as it was. I think Lorraine agrees with that.
She does. She hasn't been on it yet, but she will.
I know she will.
She will.
She will.
Whether it's by her own choosing or whether you drag her on it.
It's true.
We talked about the tolled section of I-77, which is the West Virginia Turnpike. We also have the non-toll sections to mention. Josh, you're more proficient in the section north of Charleston than I am, right?
Yes.
How would you summarize that?
The section north of Charleston, I'd say, is... I mean, it's a pretty standard Western Appalachian freeway. It's pretty similar in a scenery to a lot of the stuff in eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. It's not. It's a bit rugged, but not much in the way of steep grades or anything. It's certainly less interesting than the Turnpike section.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Turnpike is one of those. Is another really interesting highway from a scenery standpoint, and also because it's a eastern toll road, and it's one of those relics of the 1950s as far as the first superhighways in the northeastern states that were ever constructed. I want to mention the tunnels real quick. There are two of them along 77. One of them is exclusively within Virginia, but the other one crosses the state line between Virginia and West Virginia. That one being the East River Mountain Tunnel. There's also Big Walker Mountain a few miles further south. They're built very much in the style of the tunnels that we see on, say, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, for instance. And they are a very interesting feature. Tunnels are generally not that common on the interstate system. So anytime that you have a couple of them in quick succession like these,
it's a pretty unique occurrence.
Yeah. Like, I know that we don't, it's more in our DNA as Americans to just blow mountains up rather than build tunnels beneath them. Actually, I was very floored by the fact that I-49 was put in a tunnel, I think in Arkansas somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, so they decided not to blow that mountain to Kingdom Come, but but new tunnel construction is very unusual. So anytime that you get something like this, it's worth stopping and taking in for a second. In fact, I was just thinking about other new tunnels, for instance, and around the east side of Louisville, there's a tunnel on.
Oh yes, there's one on 265 there. There's also one on I-64 in Louisville too. So. Oh
yeah, right. That one's a lot older, but yeah.
Yes.
That's true. 265 is now signed fully, isn't it?
It might be. They finally designated it as 265, but yeah, I'm not certain it's signed.
Okay, yeah, because I know that it took them forever to figure out, whether they were going to sign it or not. I wasn't sure if they had made that decision yet.
Yeah. Yes. They have made a decision, but last I heard, it isn't signed yet.
Yeah. 79, real quick as a recap. Charleston to Morgantown, and then once you're in Pennsylvania, it can take you on up to Pittsburgh and Lake Erie. A lot of the discussion about this highway's path involved what it would do south of Clarksburg, whether it would continue on to Beckley or on to Charleston. And then once they did settle on Charleston, exactly where in Charleston would the southern terminus be located? I mentioned in the map earlier about state ADHS corridors in West Virginia. 79 is a jumping off point for a few of them. If you recall that map, there's corridor E, there's D, there's H, there's L, and if you go just a few miles southwest of where I-79 ends, there's the end of G as well. So you can reach all parts of West Virginia via the ADHS system if you're starting somewhere on I-79.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of work on this PowerPoint presentation today, in fact, and I actually never really got to go through and do like a final run through of everything. So I'm pretty sure I removed all the dick pics from it, so we should be okay. But anyway, this was.
Well, since you mentioned dick pics,
Yeah,
I wanted to say this earlier, but didn't know if it was appropriate. When I was an undergrad, and we traveled on I-64, there were these two mountains that looked like boobs.
Okay.
And we called them the boob mountains.
Holding ladies' ears, by the way. Hold their ears, by the way.
It's okay, yeah.
So I wanted to say that earlier, that to me, when I think of I-64 between Beckley and Lexington, Virginia, I think of the boob mountains.
It's the boob highway. Okay. Yes, folks, you learn something every new here on Roadway Whiz Live every week. We're here to give you the best information available. So, there's that. I was gonna
Pics and boob mountains.
I was gonna make the point about last minute additions to the slideshow. I figured I would just throw this one in here real quick. I know that the Mon-Fayette Expressway spends the vast majority of its time in Pennsylvania, but it's perhaps worth mentioning that it does officially jump off here in West Virginia in Cheat Lake, east of Morgantown at I-68. It's a north-south highway that is seen as a tolled alternate to I-79 between Morgantown and the Pittsburgh area. Couple of sizable bridges along the way. One of them crosses Morgan Run, the other crosses Rubel's Run. West Virginia actually started their section of the highway in about 2000, and it took them about 11 years to complete it. By the time they opened their small segment of the highway, which is only about 4 miles altogether, it had taken them 11 years to build it, and it connected into a section in Pennsylvania, which Pennsylvania was then able to open, to their delight, because their section that connected into the West Virginia section had been completed and was sitting unused for about a decade as well. So they were more than happy to finally make good use of a pretty sizable section that had been completed but had never been opened. But maybe we'll save the rest of the Mon-Fayette saga for some other day. Let's talk ADHS corridors in a little bit more detail. I recognize that we have done virtual tour episodes on a number of these, or we are about to do them in future episodes. But we did an episode on I-68, which is Corridor E between Morgantown and northwestern Maryland. This highway gets a lot of usage for long-distance traffic, generally following the I-70 corridor because it bypasses a pretty significant part of the Pennsylvania Turnpike between, say, Breezewood and Pittsburgh. There was some talk several years ago about possibly bringing up the idea of extending I-68 to the west, out to the Ohio River, and out towards Moundville. It seems like that has been at least put on indefinite hold. At this point, I don't see anything happening with that.
Well, I think what will ultimately happen is, rather than it be a full-blown Interstate 68, I think that West Virginia 2 is going to be improved and widened to 4 lanes through that whole section. And I go into a little more detail about it in the I-68 episode. That that it was approved. The corridor was approved for federal funding back in like 2003 or so, And, but obviously, it requires money and funding. And there was a bond measure that passed in recent years in West Virginia. But yes, I think it's a super long shot that it would be built to interstate standards.
I found this planning map on the AA Roads forum that kind of shows some of the alignments that were studied for this. I tend to think, again, that a lot of this is just a long shot in general, but we see Morgantown in this area here. It seems like the general consensus was to build something from Morgantown in this general direction. And then it would have been logical from there to route a freeway up to Wheeling to tie it in with I-70. But the idea of building a freeway in this part of West Virginia seems like a very unnecessary adventure at this point. Spot improvements to, say, US 250 between Mountville and Fairmont might be more effective given the amount of traffic that currently goes that way.
Yeah, that's a very sparsely populated area, and any long distance that traffic is already using 79 and 70, so there's not really a need to upgrade it.
Except potentially for fracking. Because I know that politically, that's why a lot of these county politicians are really pushing for, why they're pushing for the full-blown I-68, which, as we've said, probably won't happen. But why there are widening projects that are happening on US 250 and on West Virginia too, because there is, industrial traffic on a more local regional level from fracking.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, there's that huge. I think the cost was pegged at about $6 billion. That plant on the Ohio River in Monaca, Pennsylvania, right off I-376. You can see it as you're driving across the Ohio River there. So the infrastructure in that area, that along the Ohio River, is really getting built up as far as fracking and natural gas and all that stuff. So. It's going to be interesting to see if we don't see this topic revisited at some point in the coming years.
Yes.
As demands change.
Who knows? Maybe Rainey, when she gets older, will be doing her own webinar on.
Maybe.
Maybe when she gets to be our ages.
That's right. She'll be putting us to shame. We are going to be doing an episode on Corridor G. That'll actually be next week's presentation, so I will spare you a lot of details on this highway. The West Virginia part of it runs between Charleston and the town of Williamson on the Kentucky border. It eventually continues further southwest to Pikeville, where you can pick up corridors B and Q. A short distance nearby. Other proposed highways that will be intersecting Corridor G in future years include the relocated US 52, which north of Corridor G is expected to become known as the Tolja Highway, and south of Corridor G will be known as the King Cole Highway. And I've got slides on that. Don't worry. We're coming up on that. I'm going to let Josh vent in a few minutes about that. But a lot of Corridor G looks like the picture in the lower right here. It's nice. It's okay. It's not the most spectacular drive in the state by any stretch, but there are some pretty neat rock cuts along the way. And it's a nice drive.
Yeah, it's generally a pretty nice drive southwest of Charleston. Like most ADHS corridors in West Virginia, it is signed at 65, and there are curves on that road you can't take at 65.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a road where you can't just drive the speed limit and expect to not fly off the road.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes it fun, though.
Oh, yes, it is.
Another corridor that we'll be talking about more in detail if you check out our Corridor L episode. This is US 19 between Beckley and Sutton. It's more or less a shortcut for long-distance travelers between, say, Southwest Virginia and Southwest Pennsylvania. A lot of people go this way, up US 19, to cut the corner between the Turnpike and I-79.
I'm on a much longer distance. I'll have a quarter L is also on the direct route between most of Canada and Florida, so it gets a lot of international traffic. Of people heading south.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it on that scale, but that is true. It kind of is the most direct route between, say, Buffalo and North Carolina.
Yes,
so it's part of that. So yeah, it does make some sense that that you would get a lot of international traffic going that way also. We'll talk about New River Gorge in the Corridor L episode. You can check it out there. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that this time, but
I do want to add that New River Gorge actually just became the 67th national park in the United States. Woo! Congratulations, West Virginia, for its first national park. Because weirdly, Harpers Ferry is a national historical park, so it's different. But New River Gorge is now in the big leagues with Yosemite, Yellowstone, and all the others. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was a development late in 2020, I want to say.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That just happened.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's new enough that it wasn't a national park when I was there in July. So that's a very new development. But I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was literally a New York Times news story on it like a week ago, and I think it just passed in it was literally like December or January. It was very, very recent.
I was under the impression that Corridor L was the only ADHS corridor that required the payment of a toll if you wanted to clinch it. However, I was doing a little bit of digging around, and I actually found another one. Does anybody want to take a guess as to which one that is? Josh, you're our first contestant.
I feel like I should... Corridor M in Pennsylvania. It's a toll.
I have an answer for Corridor M. Is that what we're rolling with? Maybe?
Yeah. I mean...
There's some discussions in the panel here. I'm not sure what...
Corridor M is a Pennsylvania Turnpike 66, so...
He's going with Corridor M. What does survey say? Ding, 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 ding. Yes, Corridor M is the other one that features a toll. But if you technically want to clinch Corridor L, you do have to go through the toll plaza, which you can see in the lower left. This section that goes through the toll is actually not part of US 19. But it's not even a mile in length, but it's the only part of the corridor that's not part of US 19. But we'll talk about that more in the Corridor L episode that's coming up.
It is also the only completed section of the ADHS system that is not part of a signed numbered highway.
That's one I didn't think about either. Okay.
Yeah, but it's officially US 19 alternate, I think, but it is not signed as a numbered highway. It is assigned either to I-77 or to US 19.
Gotcha. Okay. A not-so-brief history of Corridor H can be found on our Corridor H episode that we did a few weeks back. If you have not seen that one yet, I recommend that you check it out. That's another favorite of mine from the last couple of months. Where are we going right now in terms of what's under construction and what is on the outlook as far as the distant future? You can expect construction to last for at least the next couple of decades on the remaining pieces that are out there. I do like these views, by the way. They are very nice. All right, we have planning maps here to help us out. So the green sections of the corridor you see here are open to traffic. What's in blue is currently the piece that's being built between Kearns and Parsons. That piece is at least another 2 years from being opened. And then we have the next segment of the Parsons bypass. I believe design for that has been completed at this point. In 2020, they started with some land clearing and grading for that segment. The red areas, those are the areas that are going to be the last ones to get built. Final design, I believe, has started on a piece between Parsons and Davis, but we don't have any imminent construction for that segment, and we sure as hell don't have any imminent construction for the section east of Wardensville. Probably one of the signature parts of Corridor H is a part that is yet to be constructed, and that's going to be in the area south of Thomas around Blackwater Falls. That's going to be an area that I'm going to be very interested to see how they engineer their way around that. And of course you can see, the areas that have yet to be designed they're the last areas for a reason, and that's because they require the most significant engineering innovation and challenge. I'll be watching. And I kind of took a peek around some of the construction on the piece that's being built right now, but is about 2 years out from being completed. You can see a couple of bridges on this slide. This bridge deck is completed on the left, and then a very tall bridge, probably a couple 100 feet high at least, starting to take shape closer to Parsons. This bridge, by the way, is going to be the end of that news section that's being built. They're building the bridge, and then there's going to be a temporary, more or less a driveway that'll take you down to reconnect with the existing 219 down below. I thought I'd mention US 35 real quick because that is an expressway. It's mostly an expressway. There's actually one piece of it that is still being built right now. That piece is going to be completed in the next year or so. There's a gap in the middle that's being filled. This highway is most useful for connecting I-64 west of Charleston with the Ohio River at Point Pleasant. There's also a pretty sizable Toyota motor and engine plant located just off of US 35, between 64 and Point Pleasant, whatever the heck the name of that town is. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but
yeah, I think that's technically Fraser's bottom, but not certain.
yeah. So in the area where the expressway isn't completed, we have a nice little country 2-lane road, which you can see on this slide.
Yes, I actually back in 2008 drove on a brand new section of US 35 that had literally just opened. It was October of 2008.
I love it when a highway first opens and you can be one of the first persons to drive it.
Yes, it was so new that when I was looking up the directions for that trip, it wasn't on there. It was actually very shocking when I suddenly came upon it and was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's basically how I felt about Coalfields Expressway.
Yeah, I was going to say, it took them a while to recognize on Google Maps that Coalfields was open. At least the new piece that opened in October. Hey, speaking of which, why don't we talk about one of Josh's favorite highways now? Coalfields Expressway. Signed as a state highway, however, upon its full completion in the year 2250, it'll be U.S. Route 121, not state highway. This is planned as a major 4-lane expressway between Beckley and southwestern Virginia. The goal of this project has been to bring modern infrastructure and highways to a very economically depressed part of West Virginia and Virginia. As of right now, the most recent segment of highway...
Watching basketball.
The most recent section of highway...
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I wasn't muted. Sorry about that.
I like it better when they're just talking about whatever they're talking about in the background. I'd rather listen to that, personally. So the new piece opened in October of 2020, and that takes the highway as far down as Mullins, West Virginia. And Josh, you are now free to tell us. Well, before you do that, I just want to show the audience this slide, which has a general map of the Coalfields corridor. It's planned to, it already begins in Beckley, and it's going to generally run southwesterly towards US 23, Corridor B, in far southwest Virginia, along this rough corridor that's been outlined here. But Josh, if you want to talk more about it, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so the Coalfields Expressway, if and when it ever gets built, will connect US 23 near Pound, Virginia, and the West Virginia Turnpike up in Beckley, Virginia, and it'll intersect US 460 and US 52 along the way. I drove the Coalfields probably a week or so after it opened. My pictures are being shown on the screen, and as you can see in my pictures, there are some pretty impressive hot cuts, but it is a very empty stretch of road that at this point I'm not really certain is necessary, and having driven through places like Elch and Grundy. The only thing I can think is that this road here just makes it faster for people to hack up and into my move out of the area.
Yeah.
Because it's a bad area, and I don't see this road really helping at all.
Yeah, well, I have made the argument for several years, much to the chagrin of bona fide road lovers, that one cannot build 4-lane highways to solve all of their problems.
Definitely not.
I would have a much lighter issue with this highway if there were actually jobs for people to have, and if there was a reason for people to, stick around this part of the country economically. But when you consider the fact that since 1950, West Virginia is the only state in the Union that has netted a loss in population, and they've been building 4-lane highways like this the entire time, maybe it's not the highway.
Yeah, West Virginia in general is a economically depressed place, but especially the southwest quadrant of the state. I mean, places like Elch and Owens are among the most depressing towns I have ever driven through. Building a highway there won't fix it.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of problems, and they don't necessarily start with access. Yeah, I mean I can see a town like Welch being very isolated, when you consider the kind of roads that lead into and out of it, but it's the economy, right? It's about jobs and it's about opportunity, and there isn't a whole lot of that to go around right now in the state. And again, as Josh said before, really I see these roads as a one-way ticket out of town for a lot of people. Because I don't know, with the economic situation in that part of Appalachia, I'm not sure what your reason would be to want to stick around.
Yeah, that part of the country in general is among. I mean, that might be the single most oppressed section of the United States. I mean, it is. I mean, Western Virginia, Western Virginia, Eastern Kentucky. That area is bad, and it's not getting any better.
Yeah. So what you've been looking at on this slide is kind of the rundown of the sections of Coalfields and what's been built and what's been opened and what is nowhere near close to being built. This is just the West Virginia section of it. You see there's an awful lot of red on this map, which indicates that design hasn't even started yet. Yellow indicates design has either commenced or is completed. The section of blue on the right of your screen, that's the newest piece that opened in October. So now we have a full highway now from Beckley on out to Mullins right here. So the blue piece is now, for all intents and purposes, green for our discussion. I do want to call your attention to the one, I'm going to draw this a little brighter. You can't see that. This piece right here, see how there's a little blue piece randomly sitting there? So in 1999, the state of West Virginia realized that the Coalfields and King Coal highway corridors were going to intersect somewhere in the area of Welch, and they took over a former open pit mining site and started regrading the whole area with the intent that that would become a major interchange site between those two highways. As far as I can tell, the grading work was completed in about 2003. However, no additional infrastructure has been built as part of that. But it fits into the blue category because construction has technically started on that interchange as far back as the late 90s. It remains to be seen exactly how long it will take for actual road construction to start in the area because, of course, there's a hell of a lot of red surrounding that blue piece there as far as the status is concerned.
Yeah, that's probably a long way in the future because it's been taking them a long time for each of these sections. So,
yeah, I mean, we had to wait, about 15 years for the newest piece that opened?
Around that.
Yeah.
So
good luck. I'll show you, this isn't as good a quality slide as the last one, but I'll show you some of the stuff related to the Virginia section of the corridor, which runs more or less left to right across your screen. The one thing I will call your attention to is this area right in here, where the Coalfields corridor will overlap for several miles with Corridor Q.
But that section there has started construction, so they are doing some construction in that area, but outside of that, there's not really any construction in Virginia, nor are there any plans in the remotely close future.
Yeah. Well, I think they can also tap into ADHS funding for that piece, whereas everything else is... So that's the one disadvantage that Coalfields has, is that it can't tap into ADHS funding, and it can't get into Interstate funding either.
Yeah, I mean, if they really wanted to, they probably could extend a quarter over it, but they haven't. So, as of right now, it has to be self-funded. So, good luck.
Yeah. Unless you're going to get some sort of P3 kind of funding involved.
Again, good luck.
Yeah. Because investing in general is very difficult these days in that part of the country. So, we could spend hours just debating that aspect of it. But that is the reality, and unfortunately it means that a lot of these projects are going to take many, many years to complete, assuming they ever do reach the finish line. All right, Josh, it's time for your favorite part of the episode. There's an I-73 sign on this slide, and you may be wondering why there's an interstate corridor applied to a project that is, at least on the surface, purely meant to serve as a relocation of US 52. My answer to that is, how the hell do I know? I don't know.
This is, I-73, I-74 is a boondoggle. At least in West Virginia, I-73 and I-74 have entered from Ohio along US 52 and roughly followed US 52 down into Bluefield. At which point I-74 would hop on I-77 and I-73 would follow follow Corridor Q into Virginia. That, as you can probably guess, isn't really happening because West Virginia doesn't have much of an interest in upgrading US 52 behind beyond expressway grade, and in many places, US 52 is only being upgraded into a Super 2, so it's not even close to.
The stated objective of the Tolja and King Coal highways is to relocate US 52 to expressway standard.
Yes.
They're not even thinking about interstate upgrade. They're not even remotely interested in interstate upgrade at this point.
They are not.
So, and we'll see in a couple of slides how far exactly they've gotten with some of this project. But on this slide, you see generally the idea. 52 is meant to be replaced with an expressway grade highway. The exact alignment of the Tolja highway isn't even on here because it's not even that far along as far as its planning is concerned. There are a couple of pieces of it that exist. There's a bypass around the town of Crum. There's also the far north end of the highway where it ties in west of Huntington, which resembles a 4-lane expressway. There's not much other than that.
Yeah, that's really it for.
Yeah. But it's one of those highway projects that it's going to take a heck of a long time to come together, assuming that it ever does. Hey, speaking of highway projects that are going to take a heck of a long time to come together if they ever do, King Coal Highway. So the 52 relocation has been broken up into two distinct pieces. You have the section north of Corridor G, which is known as Tolja Highway. The section south of Corridor G is known as King Coal Highway, if I can put it in as simple a term as possible. Look, there's another I-73 sign on this slide. How about that? The most sizable piece of King Coal that's been completed is the section east of Williamson, which is going to be featured in these pictures. They have a 4-lane right-of-way graded, 2 lanes paved. I mean, that's pretty typical of what you're going to see, I think, for a long time as new sections of this highway come online.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it generating enough traffic to really warrant 4 lanes for quite some time. And in a sense, it doesn't have ADHS funding. It kind of has to be built on, cheap. So,
yeah, this is another one of those highways that without P3 intervention, it's going to take ages to put together. This is a picture I took from the east end of the piece outside of Williamson. So they've blasted their way. They've blasted a path for a future highway, but the alignment ends right around the curve here. That's about as far as the expressway is going to go, at least for the foreseeable future. There's no plan in place for construction east of here anytime soon.
Nope.
There is construction going on in the area of Bluefield. There is a short section of highway being built that will finally make use of the bridges you see in the lower right slide, known as the Christine West Bridge. These bridges were built, about 10 years ago? Something like that?
I mean, those bridges have been sitting unused forever.
Yeah, they were built as part of the interchange, the US 52 Corridor Q interchange, many years ago now. They've been sitting there unused ever since. There is a project underway that will extend the highway around the north side of Bluefield, presumably to another stub end. And that will finally make use of these bridges you see here. Other than that, there's nothing imminent as far as construction of King Coal in southern West Virginia. It's one of those things where it's just like Coalfields. We're waiting many years to see if we can get a small piece constructed. Although I will say that I'm glad that they finally had the courtesy to make those bridges useful at some point. That was
Yes.
That was awfully nice of them.
I agree.
Yeah. Those bridges were built in 2009, so
Yeah.
they will, in theory, connect to something this year.
Well, that's good. I'll have to hurry down there and film that. Or, on second thought, maybe I'll pass. But, so I'm highlighting in yellow the pieces of King Coal that are open. So from 77 at the portal for the East River Mountain Tunnel. I'm going to highlight the piece that's going to open later this year. That's part of what I have here. So that's going to be open. There's also the piece out by Williamson, this rather sizable piece that's now completed. And you see a whole lot of a gap in the middle. And you see that they've already gone ahead and broken this up into different contracts or different segments that they want to build. Again, you see what's on the to-do list here, and you see how long it's taken them to build what they have to this point, and so you can kind of get an idea that this is going to be a very long-term affair. I will highlight for you real quick the mention of the King Coal and Coalfields interchange interface, which again has been graded, it just hasn't been constructed yet. I think we did a pretty decent job of covering the state on that note. If anybody has any questions, they're more than free to sound off in the live chat below. If you want to profess your love for I-73 in West Virginia, you're free to do that as well, although I'm not so sure you're going to get a lot of love in return from us, but you're free to do that as well if you like.
If you really want anything on I-73, your best resource might be Shandor's site, which I will link in the chat. Because he did a trip in 2002 along the I-73 corridor in West Virginia, and it looks almost exactly same then as it does now.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. I was just going to say, ask Bob Malm, because he knows.
Yeah.
He's Mr. I-73. At least on the North Carolina side of things. I don't know about other states, but...
At least North Carolina is actually building part of it.
North Carolina's trying. I can't say the same about Virginia and West Virginia and Ohio and Michigan, but...
Virginia, seems to be interested south of Roanoke, but north of there, they don't really have any interest.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, I can see a connection to Roanoke happening at some point. I'm not sure about further north of there.
I agree. Being pretty familiar with that part of Virginia, I could see the connection to Roanoke. But anything beyond that, I highly
the plan past Roanoke actually involved a second on-way concurrency on I-81. So that would have been interesting, but...
Yeah, so you're going to have two wrong-way concurrencies on I-81 in a relatively short distance. Yeah, if you ever
that's pretty cool.
If you ever built 73 through there. Yeah, because
Yeah.
through Withville, you have, of course, the flipping of directions with between 81 and 77. The same phenomenon would happen with 81 and 73.
Yeah, between Christianburg, I think, and oh no, so yeah.
We have our show for you next Saturday that you can see on the screen here. We'll be able to go more up close and personal with Corridor G across eastern Kentucky and southwestern West Virginia. Also, we've got we're bringing back the roundtable feature tomorrow. This should be interesting. What happens when you get a few road enthusiasts together to talk about toll roads and shunpiking? I honestly have no idea what's going to happen when the camera goes live. There really isn't a PowerPoint for this presentation at all. It's just going to be us sounding off on whatever the heck we want to sound off about. So, if I were you, I would tune in tomorrow at 6 because this is going to be interesting. We're going to focus on New England and hopefully Eastern Canada in this episode. That should be fun. I'm going to start a video here real quick, and then I'm going to step out for a couple of minutes. Josh, if you want to tell us more about King Coal Highway or anything else that's on your mind, Josh, you're free to tell us. You can, if you want to, tell us about the latest episode of Sesame Street that you watched. You can do that too. I don't really care. I'm going to step out for a couple minutes. So if you want to keep us,
I think I would be. I think Lorraine would be the better expert in that.
Okay, yeah, the King Coal Highway. You're starting off in a pretty typical West Virginia two-lane road here. This is basically what all of them look like. Very narrow, winding. Speed limit might be 55, but you can't actually drive 55. And then as we turn onto the King Coal Highway segment, all of a sudden it's wider and yeah. So so now that we're so now that we're on the actual King Coal Highway, as you can see, it's only as of right now, it's only a 2-lane road. They have it created for 4 lanes, but I don't see it being 4 lanes anytime remotely soon.
there are some pretty badass rock cuts through here. Like this is one of them on the right.
Oh yeah, this is pretty similar to the new section of the Coalfields as well.
Yeah.
The entire thing is those giant rock cuts, or in between giant rock cuts, giant sections of a hill.
You know, I am reminded of the days when I was studying for the PE exam when I look at footage of West Virginia highways like this one. Because in the construction section of the afternoon exam, there were a lot of questions about cut and fill calculations.
Oh, yes.
So I was thinking to myself, gee, I wonder what kind of calculations they had to do for this. Or,
yeah, that's all I can think about. Driving in West Virginia, every expressway is constant cut and fill.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got cut and fill down to a T in West Virginia on the ADHS system, especially. And even in, then they've translated that kind of technique over to highways like this, of course, too. But, yeah, West Virginia is an example of Earth moving at its most extreme.
Yeah, but they are not afraid to blow up an entire mountain to build a road.
No, they're not. We saw that with Corridor H, and we're seeing it with this highway here. And you can see...
I feel like that's the definition of West Virginia. It's just blowing up mountains.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep. West Virginia and Kentucky blow up mountains.
Yeah, and you can see how busy the highway is right now, right? Like what were the actual...
super busy.
It is so busy. I mean, God, that rush hour. I don't know how people do it.
I don't know. I guess this is a school that we're coming up to on the right. I don't know. Maybe it is, but that's a good.
Yeah, like a school, kind of cool school bus sign.
Yeah, I guess that's. I don't know. Is that like a West Virginia specific thing? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that's a West Virginia standard.
Okay.
Yeah. India. It looks like that's that looks like it's it looks like Ingo Central High School.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great that they're putting a school right in the middle of a future interstate too. That works really well.
Only in West Virginia.
Yeah, well, that also tells you a little something about how serious they are about the interstate concept through here. Hey, by the time the school building has to be replaced in 200 years, maybe they'll finally get around to upgrading it to interstates.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always interested me that, I'm just going to leave it on this video for now. I don't really want to move on to anything too quickly, but, this is kind of a case study of what West Virginia's mentality has been for a long time, as far as the environmental destruction that they are inflicting just for the purposes of building these highways that, as you can see, aren't really all that busy. I don't know what the daily traffic figures are on US 52, but I suspect that they're not all that high. I don't know. There's a lot to think about and a lot to break down, and I know that we talked about a lot of it on the Corridor H episode, but I don't know. Like some of the, especially some of the environmental stuff has been coming back to mind here for me in the last few minutes.
Yeah, traffic I'm seeing here is about what I experienced on the Coalfields, except all of that is actually four lanes, so it's an empty four-lane highway.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily build Coalfields to 2 lanes right now, and it would be easily sufficient, at least for the very foreseeable future.
Not to mention that then maybe it would get done in this century.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I kind of feel the same way about other ADHSs, like H, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know that they needed to build that to 4 lanes right away, like they are adamant about doing. But, maybe if they had focused on just establishing a corridor, then maybe we'd be much further along as far as that's concerned. I mean, it's going to take us 200 years to finish this highway, even if it's 2 lanes. But, other roads like Coalfields, I'm really surprised that they are very quick to make the jump to 4-lane highway hyperspace rather than incremental improvements, which is what you tend to see elsewhere in the country.
Right. You'd think that at least if you built the 2-lane road, then that would induce demand. Enough to then be like, oh, see, we got people on it. Means we gotta now make it 4 lanes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's always been a very backwards way to me as I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, and I will note that as we are seeing here with King Cole, and actually as we saw with Quarter L, West Virginia does sometimes build to a 2 lanes and expands to a 4 lanes. They just aren't for some reason. Most of a Quarter L started off as a 2-lane highway, but it had so much traffic that it was pretty quickly widened to 4 lanes.
Yeah, we just drove like a 12-mile section of King Cole, and what did we see? Maybe 10 cars. So, yeah, the engineer in me is very skeptical. I am not as I've said on the record many times before, I'm not in favor of building highways just for the hell of it when there appear to be other issues at hand. I don't know. I
agree.
That's one of those rabbit holes we can go down and never come out of, even if we spend all day in it. There are a lot of political overtones there that I don't particularly want to touch in this episode.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff if you want more literature on West Virginia and infrastructure development and stuff like that. I want to show you guys a video real quick of US 30 across West Virginia. I'm going to show you guys some video of stuff that's a little more off the beaten path, a little stuff that I have not uploaded already on YouTube. Because we have kind of been off the beaten path in general in tonight's presentation, so I thought I would give you guys more of an off the beaten path look at my travels in the state the last few years. We are in East Liverpool, Ohio. This is a freeway section that bypasses the center of town along the Ohio River. We're about to turn east onto US 30 into West Virginia here momentarily. It's a nice little urban freeway. It's a bit out of the way, it's not near like the metropolitan areas of the state. It's pretty far out of the way as far as that's concerned. But if you're in the Pittsburgh area and you're looking to take a detour out to the Ohio River and follow that for a little while, you'll end up here. course, the most.
Yeah, Mike and I actually took this road back in 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Got anything to say, Mike? Or?
Yeah.
What do you have to say for yourself, Michael?
Yeah, we were traveling on the way back from the eclipse, which we viewed in Nebraska via Chicago.
Oh,
and,
I forgot all about that.
Took
Yeah.
the US 30 back. And just as we hit twilight, we hit the small section of West Virginia in Pittsburgh by evening.
Yeah, we are going to watch over the next few minutes here as we pass through the state of West Virginia. It's not going to take us very long, but I was thinking about like U.S. highways and tenures within states, and this has got to be one of the shorter tenures. In any
Yeah. This is only a few miles. So.
Yeah, I think this is one of the farthest north places in West Virginia that you can drive.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, like I think there's maybe like a couple of side streets that go north of here, but I think on the state highway system, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to again thank people who are checking out the this presentation tonight in the live chat. If there's anything that you guys would like to ask us about West Virginia or any other topic in general, we'd be happy to take your questions and comments. If you can help keep us entertained, that's always good for us, and it's always good for everybody involved as well. So questions, comments, you can leave them in the chat. I do want to plug the Gribble Nation Roadcast while I'm thinking of it, because I just put out an episode on Friday about Interstate 95 in Wilmington, Delaware, and the major Restore the Corridor project that just got underway this weekend, which is going to be nothing short of a traffic disaster for Wilmington for the next 2 years. But hey, it's going to be something worth discussing. So check that out. Check out the other episodes that the other guys on Gribble Nation have been putting together for you. They've been doing a great job. So there's no shortage of material to find on the podcast these days, and also on our blog site, gribblenation.org. Hey, look, there's a Subway.
Eat fresh.
Well, they're eating something.
Yeah, I guess I'll throw in a plug real fast. So part of why we're out in Frostburg is that we're starting to scout out potential sites and routing for a road meet this summer in Cumberland and Western Maryland.
I would love for you to tell me more about that, but only after you've solved whatever echo is going on in the background.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that echo.
All right, I think you just solved it.
Okay, cool. Anyway, yeah, so I was inspired after our I-68 virtual tour to come out here and do some exploring and put together a road meet. So far, the only mention I've put out there is in the 2021 meets thread on AA roads. But obviously, as time gets closer and we nail down a date and all that stuff, there'll be lots more details in multiple places.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the state that we haven't covered all that much in terms of road meets, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a road meet out here.
Like if you did one, where would you center it out of? Cumberland?
Yeah, that's the goal. Is to
Okay.
center it out of Cumberland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Corridor H meet ended in Cumberland. That's where we ate at the restaurant at the end of that, right? That was there was a
No, that was not the quarter H meet. That was just a meetup with some friends.
yeah,
Where
it
did,
wasn't formal.
that wasn't a formal.
We ended up in like
But we did at the end of the quarter H meet. We did end up in Western Maryland.
yeah.
I don't remember. Do you remember offhand the exact stops? Because I don't. But I know that it wasn't it like Southern Garrett?
Yeah, well, it was like
Southern Garrett County.
I think we ended up like Thomas and Davis. We didn't stop in those places though.
Right. Well, that's West Virginia.
Right.
But I thought there was anyway. I thought there was a stop in the southern part of Garrett or somewhere in that area. But otherwise, no, not a meet that was centered on Western Maryland. But there's some cool stuff out here as far as, National Road. We're going to see that there's, we're going to check out tomorrow and see if there's construction going on US 219 in Maryland. Obviously, there's a lot of really cool bridges out here. National road bridges, but also railroad bridges.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's something I would be interested in because, as you know, I have a little gadget that I like to fly around every once in a while. And
that's right.
Yeah, so I'll have to see.
National Park property.
Well, that's the other part too. You got to be careful. Because there is a ban on that stuff within like National Park Service territory, but
right. So
even the Appalachian Trail is on that list. It's like all property listed on.
I was gonna say probably the C&O Canal.
Yup, all of that is no fly zone.
Here's the stub interchange real quick of the US 52 and US 460. At the end of this ramp we're taking, you'll notice that there's a right-of-way cleared straight ahead. That is the future piece of King Coal that's being built right now. And beyond that, around the curve, is the Christine West Bridge. And you can see the mountain in the distance that's being completely obliterated to make way for the new section.
In classic West Virginia fashion.
It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, you couldn't consider a tunnel for that? Like, really? But it's West Virginia. They need all that extra fill for all the extra parts of King Coal that still have to be built. Because I'm sure in West Virginia they do their cut and fill calculations on a macro level. Let's see here. Thomas Geyer says, are the travel plazas still up and running on the Turnpike? I'm wondering. I haven't been back home east for the past 6 years. I live in Vegas now. Yeah, the service areas are still open on the West Virginia Turnpike. Some of them date all the way back to the 50s, so you'll find that I think the only one that is accessible to both directions of traffic is down in Beckley.
Yes.
But the ones that have been constructed and have been in use over the years still continue to be in use today. So that's the story with that. And by the way, if you haven't already seen our West Virginia Turnpike virtual tour episode, I definitely recommend that you check that out. That was a lot of fun to do. And as we mentioned earlier, Adam has a lot of stories about the West Virginia Turnpike and the service area in Beckley, so you will never look at the Beckley Travel Plaza again if you listen to that episode. I'll tell you that much. But I want to show you 70 through Wheeling while I'm thinking of it. It's one of my favorite interstate sections in the state. Again, 70 doesn't spend a whole lot of time in West Virginia. It only spends about 15 miles or so. But You do get a lot out of that 15 miles, specifically with this section that we're passing through here. Leaving Ohio eastbound and entering West Virginia. They swapped out these signs not long ago. Like, these are new signs. When I was first through here in 2012, they had a lot of old button copy through here, but this has all been replaced.
Ohio replaces signs very quickly,
Yeah.
so...
Well, one thing they haven't replaced very quickly is this bridge deck.
No.
No, they haven't.
And we are in West Virginia, so... Okay.
This is a wild and wonderful drive. As you see, traffic on 70 is advised to use the left lane because the right lane becomes exit only. So we have a rare circumstance where a mainline interstate must be reduced to a single travel lane. Looks like it was built originally wide enough for 2 lanes through here, but I can easily understand why, for safety reasons, it makes more sense for it to be striped to a single lane as we transition from the bridge into the tunnel.
Yes.
Yeah, the Wheeling Tunnel was built in the 50s as well, I think. And truck drivers and hazmat drivers are advised to use I-470 instead to get around Wheeling instead of going this way. It's a nice little piece of freeway, isn't it?
I love tunnels.
As I say, there really aren't enough of them.
No, there
I
aren't.
agree. You know, it's
Especially-
funny being in this part of the country. I'm just so used to tunnels that I forget that most of the rest of the country does not have tunnels.
That's true. Yeah, in our part of the country, we have tunnels underneath bodies of water, but not necessarily under land obstacles.
No.
True.
And so, yeah, it is interesting. It is, it's rare to see stuff like that. I kind of wish we took on more of a European mindset as far as highway design through mountainous terrain, but, I don't know. I guess because we're Americans and because our testosterone level is up, we have to use all the explosives we can. But
Yep. Also because we look solely at the dollar amount and say, oh, it's cheaper to just blow up a mountain
yeah,
without...
Yep.
yeah.
Which tunnels that don't involve toll roads.
Well, yeah, I think that was the deciding factor in, say, I-68 past Sidling Hill. Like, they blew that mountain to Kingdom Come, and that was actually the cheaper option. Which is...
Oh, yeah, it was much cheaper.
Yeah.
And I forget the numbers offhand, but I remember stating in that presentation what the exact numbers were. But it was like practically double to build a tunnel.
This is another section of freeway and Wheeling that I like quite a bit. This is US 250. This is a north-south highway connecting the 2 interstates, 470 and 70. You will see downtown off to our left. It's more or less straight ahead now, but we pass it on the left in the next couple of miles or so. This highway, I first filmed it back in 2012, and it really hasn't changed at all since then. So I'm just going to roll with this footage I got right here. It's a nice old-style freeway with lots of old concrete, and there used to be a lot of old signs, although I think most of those have been replaced at this point.
Yes.
But still, it's a nice urban drive for you. So, Laura, what did you say your itinerary was for tomorrow?
So tomorrow, we know we definitely want to keep taking all 40 west, and definitely want to do some more exploring in Garrett County, and also want to poke down in West Virginia a bit. Want to, we did a lot of Cumberland today, but tomorrow, it's hard to plan an exact itinerary with a toddler.
Sure it is. Just make her decide.
Right. No pee breaks allowed. Well, in her case, diaper change breaks, but sorry, kid, tough it out.
Yeah, right. Learn to hold it, will you?
Right. So I can't exactly go, I can't create a down to the minute itinerary. Not that we were the type of road geek that did that anyway, but even still, it's hard to know exactly what we will and won't cover, because obviously if she's cranky, then we're, going to want to spend more time out of the car and so on and so forth. But I do know that 40 is definitely on the list. We definitely want to poke down in West Virginia. So that's on the list. Probably our West Virginia poking will be more Allegheny, outside Cumberland. So we'll just have to see time-wise. But I do know we definitely wanted to check out at Kaiser's Ridge, which is exit 14 on I-68. That's where 219. No, it's the other 219 exit we wanted to see, that there's potential construction. Grantsville. So that we want to see. And then also figuring out clinches for cute little Lorraine. Because this is all new. Garrett County we poked into for the first time for her today. Allegheny was also brand new, first time. We did some route clinches in Maryland. Poked up into Somerset and Bedford counties in Pennsylvania for the first time for her. And so a lot of this trip is kind of more loosey-goosey. We're probably definitely going to come back out here again to really, figure out, to nail down what exactly we're going to include and how the tour is going to go. This is more of like a fun weekend.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it.
Yeah.
I think she agrees with that.
Yeah. You're saying hi to everybody.
Yeah, so I will show you guys the West Virginia contribution to the Mon-Fayette Expressway. It took them all of 11 years to build about 3.5 miles of highway. Not too shabby. That's like King Cole Highway progress right there.
In typical West Virginia fashion.
Yeah. So we departed I-68, and we immediately have an interchange here at Cheat Lake, and then the highway curves north, and there's a couple of high-level bridges along the way between here and the Pennsylvania state line. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward section of highway. Josh, what are the long-term plans for the Mon-Fayette corridor?
I mean, there's, West Virginia's section is finished, but as far as the Pittsburgh end, they want to eventually tie it into a 579, I know, but I'm not exactly certain how much they actually will end up.
576, you mean, right?
Oh, yeah, 576.
Yep.
That will eventually tie in, but
yeah,
outside of that, there's not really.
Yeah, the section of 576 that's currently being built is only going to take you as far east as I-79, and then there's the third piece east from I-79 to Mon-Fayette that I believe is still... I don't know if the design has been completed on that. I think I read that it was somewhere, but that's construction of that is contingent on funding, which given the fact that 576 and Mon-Fayette are both under the umbrella of the PTC.
Good luck.
Well, yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. Yeah.
Yeah, they would like to eventually extend the Mon-Fayette up to I-376, but that's a very long-term plan.
Yeah, I think the newest piece that they have earmarked for construction is only going to take it up as far as Duquesne, which is on the south bank of the Mon River.
Yeah, I think so.
So they're not even going to go across the Mon at this point.
Nope.
And that's the newest piece that's supposed to start in a few years. So that tells you that this is another very long-term affair. And I really have no idea what's going on with the 576 section east of I-79.
Yeah,
I don't know what the deal is with that.
I don't know at all.
Because we also, there were funding issues before the pandemic happened, right? And we know that the pandemic has made certain issues worse. So I do think it's going to take some time for us to kind of establish a revised timeline for a lot of these projects.
As of now, the eastern part of 576 doesn't have a timeline. So,
well, if it didn't have a timeline before the pandemic, I guess that means it has a negative timeline now.
Yes. So,
yeah. What's going to happen first? They will complete I-576 or Lorraine will graduate high school? I'm going to say that Lorraine is going to graduate high school long before.
Oh, easily.
I agree.
Easily.
Yeah, so there's Pittsburgh is kind of an extension of West Virginia in that regard. Like, they have highways that are on the books for construction, but they're just taking an infinite amount of time to build them. So, it's one of those things where, don't worry about stepping away from the hobby for a few years because you probably aren't going to miss much.
No.
No. Long term is the name of the game in West Virginia.
Yeah. This video I've got up right now is US 340 around Harper's Ferry. This video is actually interesting to me because we passed through 3 different states over the course of this one video. We started out in West Virginia near Harper's Ferry. There it is. There's the Virginia is for Lovers sign.
Is for lovers.
And then there's a third state that's going to get into the mix here momentarily with Maryland.
Yeah, yeah, Tri-Point between Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia is just off of the side of US 340 over here. So we passed maybe 30 feet of Tri-Point.
Oh, really? That close? Okay.
Yep.
Do you know if there's a marker?
I do not know if there's a marker.
Yeah.
I should know the answer to that question, but I actually don't.
I don't think there is because it's technically in the Potomac, but...
So it's like the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania Tri-Point. It's in the river.
Except that actually has it.
Yeah.
Well, it has a marker, but it's not at the actual mark, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, look, another state. There's Maryland. All right.
Yay!
Everybody loves Maryland.
Absolutely.
What do I want to show you guys? I'll show you one more video. How's that sound? Here's an exercise in patience and perhaps even futility. I want to see if we can follow U.S. Route 52 through the village of Williamson, West Virginia. We're starting off on Corridor G. You will recognize this spot when you watch the video of it next week. But I want to follow existing US 52 through the village of Williamson, which is located on the West Virginia-Kentucky border. It's one of those towns that Josh has alluded to. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere in a depressing part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind as we go through here that I am following the main line of a U.S. highway, and this confused the hell out of me the first time I tried to do this, but this is the path of the U.S. highway.
Welcome to West Virginia.
Yeah, this is crazy. I do like the stop sign that we're coming up to here, where it says stop except to turn right.
Yeah. I'd expect that in Pennsylvania.
I'm not sure what this building is on the left here. What is this, like the West?
Public housing, I'd assume.
Really?
But I'd assume it's housing.
Yeah. Williamson has quite a dramatic history as far as flooding is concerned. I think they have a flood control system that was built within our lifetime, within the last 20 or 30 years, because of floods that have come through here and have completely devastated the town. On the right is the train station, or the historic building that goes back to, I think, the early 1900s. This is also a significant town for its railroad junction, which you'll be able to see off on your right. But, Doug and Adam have a expression about quintessential New England. Well, this is quintessential West Virginia, if you ask me.
Yes.
So many other towns in the state look like this.
Yeah. Honestly, this is basically every town in West Virginia. If you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're driving through the center of Williamson, and this is one of the more sizable communities in this part of the state. So like this is, we look at this and this is a pretty small town, but by West Virginia standards, this is actually a pretty sizable community.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was not expecting a community this large, and especially not one with like multi-family buildings that are like 5 stories tall.
See, I mean, West Virginia has skyscrapers too. Yeah, but I drove this piece when I was trying to link up with the King Cole Highway section that we already watched. This is how you would get there. You would just follow 52 east about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes east from Williamson. That's how you would link up with it. You gotta love the coal trains that are visible down below.
Yep. That's West Virginia for you.
It is. Yeah, Williamson is a pretty big town by West Virginia standards, and it's only got a population of 2,500 or so.
Yeah, so speaking of this area being one of the poorest in the country, it's bad so growing up, I was part of 2 different churches that would do service trips to Mingo County.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So basically they would, like a week every summer would go down and, do various, work projects but then also, take down like, school supplies for kids and things like that.
Wow. Is there any reason why they picked Mingo County? Like, do you know the backstory behind that?
I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if there was any kind of, the connection personally, or where people were from there or had family from there. I'm not really sure. But I just thought it was really interesting that 2 different churches had completely different, independent connections. Now, I'm not sure if maybe they were the same parts of Mingo, or I know the one was Warncliffe, West Virginia. I'm trying to think where the other one, their connection was. But just a weird coincidence that, unless, who knows, maybe those 2 churches had a similar link. Now I'm curious. I'm going to find out.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find that out.
Yeah.
We are starting to wind things down for the night here, so if anybody in the live chat has anything that they want to bring up last minute, now's a good time to do that. Really want to thank Josh for taking time out of his day to hang out with us. Haven't heard from him in a while, so that's good.
Yeah.
I have to say that I think Laura is making a late push here for season 2 MVP for stepping up at the last minute to help us out a little bit here. So it's always,
thank you.
It's always great to have her on, and of course Mike too. And
cute little Lorraine.
Of course, and it was great having the 3 of you on again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's an honor, and it's a pleasure on our end too to be able to be on here.
So we will remind you real quick that we've got another episode tomorrow night, and then we've got 4 more Saturdays worth of episodes as we start to get close to the finish line here. I know that we've been in this, week after week since December, and really since even before then too. But I am going to be kind of glad when the season finale is completed, because that means I get to take a little vacation for a little while. I'm looking forward to that.
Lots of ATVs, like classic Virginia.
It's quintessential West Virginia for you.
It is, and after providing all this awesome quality content, you deserve a vacation.
Well, I won't disagree with that. I'm with you 100%. Who wants to take a shot at this question? Will the United States ever get an Interstate 50 or an Interstate 60? I would say don't count it out in North Carolina because they feel like building interstates everywhere these days.
True.
I would say no to I-50 or I-60, but the thing is, like, a lot of interstates now have their numbers written into law, so all it takes is some goofball politician to think that the number is a good idea, and then write it into the grant for the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have the precedent of I-41 in Wisconsin.
Yep, I-41 in Wisconsin, I-69, all of those, I-3.
Actually, the number equals it is the U.S. The interstate is the U.S. right number.
Yeah. So
using that precedent, then the U.S. 50 could be I-50 in Maryland.
That's true. You could do that.
I mean, not that I would suggest that, but I mean, using that logic. But I would say, like, you get that maybe on some of the Kentucky Parkway somewhere. Maybe there'd be something in there because I don't think there's any Is there any X-Zeros east-west going through there? They have 60.
Yeah.
Not in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a 64 and a 24, but...
Yeah, it'd be you'd have trouble. That's why we don't have them in the first place. But assuming that logic holds, then we should be safe from them in the future. But you never know.
Yeah. I just want to take a second before we sign off to pray to the altar of Interstate 3, and because I know that's another one that everybody in the road enthusiast community absolutely loves. So, I say bring it on, man. Let's build it. Let's build this thing. Give you guys more stuff to yell about on the forum. Because as I say time and again, these little quirks in our interstate system and in our highway system are what make it so fun to discuss. So. I am perfectly fine with building stuff that doesn't conform because it means that it'll give you guys more stuff to scream about for many years. And I get to sit back with my bowl of popcorn and enjoy it myself. So, really want to thank Mike and Laura and Rainey from Western Maryland and Josh from New York for helping me out tonight with tonight's presentation and overview into the state of West Virginia. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for our next presentation and also next Saturday as well. So from all of us here, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again. So take care, everybody.
Adios.
Bye-bye!